Yes, hello friends and investors, welcome back to my channel, Cebu Bohol Homes, and this is Amon Ray. And for today's episode for Home Talk, we'll be checking out what's the latest in the aviation industry as COVID-19 grounded thousands of planes, and here's what happens to them. From closing thousands of window shades to keeping out tiny insects, the work does not stop for aircraft engineers just because their planes are out of work. The show Grounded uncovers some interesting facts about what is required. Singapore. At airports around the world, a bustle of travelers and constant sound of planes taking off have been replaced by silence and perhaps the occasional bird chirping on the runways. The COVID-19 pandemic has all but decimated commercial passenger flights, and with nowhere to go, thousands of planes are out of work. But while these planes are grounded, work goes on for the army of engineers whose job it is to keep an eye on the aircraft and make sure they remain in good shape. At the show, Grounded finds out many things need to be considered, from where to park the planes on how to keep out birds and the tiniest of insects, and even what would happen if window shades are not closed. Here are some interesting facts about protecting grounded planes. Number 1, parking planes at airports is like solving jigsaws. Think of where to find planes, and the instinctive response would be the airport. But airlines have run out of the usual space to store them. Airports are designed to keep aircraft in constant motion rather than stationary, said aviation industry expert Simin Ngai from travel data and analytics company Cerium. For example, there is not enough space for AirAsia, with Malaysia's biggest fleet, to park all its planes at Kuala Lumpur International Airport 2, said AirAsia aircraft maintenance engineer Yap Sheng Lin. Some must be parked at the cargo terminal. In Bangkok, there are even parked in the taxiways, and some of them are sent to Phuket and Pattaya international airports, he added. Taxiways, which connect runways to terminals, are being used in Singapore too. Industry of Changi, the only other time we've parked planes on the taxiway was during SARS in 2003, said Singapore Airlines Engineering Division Quality Manager Abel Lee. But it was only for a short while and for a few aircraft, like 2020, when we have more than 90% of our fleet being grounded. Finding the space is one challenge, but positioning the planes can be another. Extra precautions must be taken when parking them in the taxiway, said Lee, because there is no clearly demarcated location to put the aircraft. They also need to be kept 25 meters apart so that when the engines are started up, dust or exhaust is not blown onto the aircraft behind. Like a jigsaw puzzle, fitting planes into a crowded space not meant for parking planes requires a real team effort and coordination on the ground, particularly when the wingspan of some planes can be the width of a football field. Number 2, the best place to store planes is the desert. Humidity can wreak havoc on grounded planes. The jet fuel planes used, for example, can absorb moisture, resulting in water forming in the fuel tank. Water can breed microbes, and these contaminants can cause damage to the fuel tank and to an aircraft, which can then impact on safety, said Lee. This is why the arid desert environment is the best place to store planes. SIA, for example, stores some of its largest planes at Alice Springs Airport, which Ngai described as one of the key choices in the region. It's dry, so it's better for maintaining the equipment, she said. By putting it in a more conducive environment for long-term storage, you're looking at less damage eventually when the aircraft returns to service. One facility in Arizona, Ascent Aviation Services, has seen a 600% increase in its storage business since COVID-19 began. Its president, Dave Curio, said it currently has more than 400 aircraft in storage from 6 continents. Number 3, grounded planes mean silica gel bags are in demand. For planes that remain parked at boarding gates, taxiways, and runways, particularly in humid Southeast Asia, the most important part to protect from moisture is the engine, which can cost more than 25 million US dollars or 34 million Singaporean dollars each. Wow, that's a lot of money. When the aircraft is on the ground for an extended period, these engines aren't turned on as frequently as we want, said Lee. Humidity could then corrode the engine's parts. This is why SIA, for example, runs each grounded plane's engine periodically, every month or every 3 to 6 months, depending on the aircraft, engine type, and the plane's mode of parking. Running the engine burns any water content that's in the oil, said Lee. This is what drives the aircraft, so it's very important to protect the engine to make sure it's rust-free, it's well-oiled. in good condition and safe to fly. Between engine runs, other measures are in place to keep engines safe from moisture and rust. Aircraft engineers use silica gel bags, which Yap described as the same as those tiny silica gels that we find when we unpack our household items, but larger. At least 15 packs are needed per plane, he said. These packs are also needed for the plane's cabin. With cabin doors closed, humidity can rise and moisture can cause mildew to damage leather on plane seats, carpets, curtains, and the galleys, according to Lee. With so many planes grounded around the world, these bags are in great demand, and every airline needs this for corrosion prevention. So it's very hard for us to procure, said Yap. We're working day and night trying to procure them. Number four, even the tiniest bags can pose a serious threat. Even though grounded planes are not in service, the to-do list for maintenance is long. If we were to print out a manual, said Yap, it would easily run to over 100 pages. Of the many guidelines, one of the key ones is to keep wildlife out of the planes. With airports quieter than ever, planes have become a perfect nesting ground for creatures of all shapes and sizes. In Bangkok, some AirAsia engineers found a bird's nest under the wings of one plane. Siap recalled. We had to safely remove the bird's nest so that the birds weren't harmed, he said. Besides the wings, engineers must check spaces like the landing gear, and even crawl into them to ensure that no creatures have made a home there. You may find birds or maybe small rodents crawling in here, which may damage all these electronics and the hydraulic lines in the aircraft, said Philippine Airlines Senior Aircraft Technical Specialist Manuel Quizon Jr. Overlooking even the tiniest of pests could prove catastrophic. He pointed to a 1996 plane crash. The pilot received inaccurate information from one of the plane's troops for measuring airspeed because nest debris from an insect was stuck inside. So even the little things such as small sensors must be taken care of and covered. We need to always ensure that these covers are in place and not blown away by the wind, said Kizan. We have programs in place to have them inspected on a daily basis. There are also numerous other little tasks to be done, such as closing the thousands of window shades on all the planes. This, said Lee, blocks sunlight and UV rays, preventing damage to the interior furnishings. Most SIA planes, he added, have window shades that can be pulled down easily, but the 787 Dreamliner planes used by its subsidiary Scoot uses dimmable windows instead, which work only when the plane is powered up. We actually apply black plastic sheets to cover the windows because they don't have the manual window shades, said Lee. In this unprecedented situation, we had to be creative and think on our feet to find solutions on these problems. The task may be simple but also time-consuming. Seat checks, for example, are done every month, said Lee. It includes checking every seat's recline, leg rest, footrest, meal table, and overhead reading lights. These are really small things that might seem insignificant, but they're really important because if you find problems early enough, you can fix them, he said.